Second, there we go. Do you mind if I record this meeting, by the way?
No problem.
So, appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, esteemed keynote speaker and faculty and aspiring future lawyers, and whoever is taking part in this marvelous event, good afternoon, good morning, good evening to you all. So it is indeed a privilege for us, for me personally, to be here today to discuss the fundamental aspect of legal education, which is the importance of writing letters and the writing skills in general. So we all know that this skill is a very crucial art, and which is a very important thing for the future lawyers who are on the verge of embarking on their journey in learning law. It becomes increasingly apparent that the ability to articulate thoughts, arguments, and legal principles in writing is an indispensable skill that is every aspiring lawyer must have. And in the legal profession, we all know that the written word is a powerful tool that can shape opinions, influence decisions, and ultimately serve as a bedrock of justice. And this also is a meticulously drafted feature. When we talk about the writing features for lawyers now, we immediately must bear in mind the very fundamental of all writings now, which is the writing letters now. A meticulously drafted letter not only reflects the professionalism, but also ensures the clarity in communication, mitigates misunderstandings, and leaves a lasting impression on the recipient itself. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a specialist from Italy. It is both an honor and a pleasure to introduce her for this legal luminary, a professional whose expertise transcends and whose mastery of the intricacies of law knows no linguistic boundaries. We have the privilege of welcoming Ms. Claudia Amato, who is fluent in English and Italian, and she has seamlessly navigated the often treacherous waters of legal translation, ensuring that the essence of precision of complex legal documents and preserve it across linguistic landscapes now. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, please join me today in extending a warm welcome to Ms. Claudia Amato. She is going to conduct her very essential topic today. The topic is writing a modern letters now. So, Ms. Claudia, welcome. Buonavicchio, assalamu alaikum, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for having invited me. And I'm going to share my presentation. Okay. Let me start. Okay, so the topic I would like to discuss today is email writing for lawyers. And this is mainly because one of the first skills that lawyers need to have when they start work is to write very simple emails. And this is a very difficult skill. So, first of all, building relationships. So, most of the times we underestimate the importance of writing because we don't consider that we're having an interaction with a real person. So, the point is that nowadays, no one has a job that requires them to work alone, which means, in other words, that we all need to interact with other people. So with bosses, managers, with colleagues, and also, of course, hopefully with clients. And this leads to our next point, that is that our success also as lawyers strictly depends on our ability to also develop relationships. And this is something that we do both with spoken communication and with written communication. In other words, communication is your lifeblood as a lawyer, as a paralegal, as a legal assistant, whatever role you would like to take in the legal sphere, you will have to communicate with clients, with colleagues. So excellent communication skills are probably the most important career and personal skill that you need to make sure you possess. And normally people aren't born writers or speakers, which means that the more you write, the more you speak, the more you challenge yourself, the more you put yourself into a situation, the more you will improve your writing, speaking, communication skills. Of course, you also need to have a willingness to improve your skills. Now, let's take a quick look at the dangers of poor communication, because sometimes, especially lawyers, underestimate what are the consequences of a poor communication. Misunderstandings. So people don't really understand what we want to say. They don't understand, first of all, our tone, because one of the most difficult things when writing is to transfer our feelings, our ideas, and this is even more difficult when we have to interact with people who come from different cultures. So, and this is one topic that we will see later in today's presentation. Another possibility is that no action is taken, probably because we don't formulate our questions in the right way, and so people don't understand what they have to do, or they do the wrong thing, so the wrong action is taken. We waste time, but another possibility is that we also experience a time lost, which is very important that we not do so when we are lawyers, because we have deadlines. And if we don't respect deadlines, our clients will have to pay for this. Business loss, there's the possibility of losing business opportunities, or conflicts may arise between the writer and the recipient of the email, but also confusion between the two of them. And this is just to name a few of these, the possible misunderstandings. So in other words, a breakdown in communication means that a link in the chain is broken, and there can be far-reaching effects throughout our department, our law firm, and even our organization. Think of companies. There have been companies in the past that wrote the wrong statements on the press, for example, and their reputation was ruined for the future. Now, let's take a look at the 7 key factors to building a great relationship. First of all, be courteous. So being busy, it's no excuse for being rude to colleagues and subordinates. Maybe, and I hope so, that you will not experience it, but it's very common, especially I would say in Europe, that the more you are higher in the organization, the more you feel that you can mistreat your employees, your colleagues. People confuse power with the possibility of mistreating your subordinates. And this was especially true in the past, but now we're starting to realize that we need to work in a safe environment. So it's no excuse to justify your the way in which you treat your colleagues or clients by complaining that you have a pressure related to your work, because we are all busy, everyone is busy, and everyone has a right to work in a cordial environment. And then even the workflow is much more smooth when the atmosphere and the people working in your work environment are very pleasant. So it's this is a benefit for all of us. Find common interests. Now, this, I can say that it's more common in Asia, for example, and it's not really common in Europe, as far as per my experience. In Europe, especially also in America, people we get down to business. So when we start a meeting, when we start an email, we don't spend time because we sometimes consider that this is a waste of time to investigate other people's feelings or interests, etc. But this is not a waste of time. This is not being unprofessional. It's a way of building a relationship, which is more easy when we meet in person, but it's less easy when we don't meet in person, when our communication, our relationship is based online, let's say. So ask yourself, how many people in your office or how many people you work with do you really know? And this doesn't mean that you need to know everything about them, but for example, what music do they like? What films, or do they like traveling? Do they have a hobby that maybe is the same of yours? Okay, so these things can be perceived as a waste of time. So talking about these things can be perceived as a waste of time, but actually it's the way in which you create a strong relationship with your clients. Build your credibility. Now, of course, your credibility is not only, it doesn't only rely on your communication skills, but it mostly relies on your communication skills. So when you work, you will have to take the decision. You will have to convince people about your point of view on something. And in order to do so, you need to be credible. And how do you achieve this result? How can you be perceived as credible? First of all, credibility comes with experience. So the more experienced you are in a certain sphere, of course, people will know that. But part of your credibility relies on your connections. So people that know you, people that trust you. And this trust is built on communication. Empower other people. Now, another thing that I have seen too many times in my experience as a lawyer is that people tend to remove power from other people because in this way they feel that they are more powerful or more important. In practical actions, this is translated in not giving tasks, not assigning tasks to employees, to newly employed staff. But this is not the way in which you create a trustworthy environment. You need to make people feel important, appreciated, because feeling unimportant or unappreciated is extremely demotivating. So it's important also to give your feedback, also to share your knowledge. And this is a way in which you build relationship. So even in a simple email, if you give feedback on, for example, let's say that a colleague of yours gives a presentation, if you then write an email to say, appreciated that, it was very interesting, or it was interesting, but I would have spent more time describing this topic, for example. This is a way in which you build relationship. Show humility. That is, I don't know if you have already experienced it. It's not very common among lawyers that to show humility. On the other hand, they show that they are powerful, they have no limits, they are knowledgeable in every sphere of the world, even beyond law, etc. But humility doesn't mean that you are not confident. Humility means that you have a quiet confidence, which means that you don't have to overshow that you are knowledgeable because you know you are. And this also means that you are happy to let other people discover your talents, your knowledge, without having to brag about them, to show everyone that you are knowledgeable about something. And humility involves maintaining your pride about who you are, about your achievements, but without arrogance. So make sure that even when you write letters, when you express your opinions, you don't do this in a way that's maybe perceived as arrogant. So make sure you introduce, you explain your point of view in a very confident way, so nobody would think that you're not really sure about what you're saying. So don't use please, I think, I believe. Oh, also you can use these words, but in the right way. I mean, showing that it's only you're only showing humility, but not that you're unsure about your research. But make sure that you do not sound arrogant. If you have any doubts, give your piece of writing to someone else, if possible, someone who is not working with you, and ask them to share their idea of how they perceive your writing. An external point of view is always a good point of view. And then listen actively. Take interest in other people by listening to them. Of course, this involves talking about the weather, this type of speech that you normally have with colleagues. This doesn't mean that you have to waste your business week talking about things that are not work related, but you need to share. It's also important to share information that is not strictly related to your work. Be empathetic. Being empathetic is for sure one of the most important skills that you can have as a person and as a lawyer, of course. You need to be there is a need to be understood. We all need to be understood. And this is one of the highest human needs. But people find it very difficult, especially in the workplace, to both express their feelings, because they confuse expressing your feelings with being perceived as weak. And it's also difficult to ask about how other people feel about a certain situation. Now, this said, it's important to, of course, set boundaries, but at the same time, you are not weak if you express your feelings at work. It's important. This might help not only your position, but also your colleagues. And if you are in a position of power, make an effort to find a way to understand what other people think and ask them. So the basics of communication is that you cannot imply, you cannot imagine other people's feelings, because you're not that person. So you may be wrong about how someone feels about a certain situation. And if you don't want to misunderstand or misrepresent a situation, ask them. Ask people to share their ideas and feelings. Now, as I said before, one of the most difficult things that lawyers nowadays, but business people nowadays come across is to communicate across cultures. It's sometimes underestimated the importance of being open to other cultures. For example, a few years ago, I would say something like 10 years ago, probably a bit less, but some years ago, I had a student who was from Russia. And when she asked me questions, she used the imperative form. And immediately, I thought that she was telling me what I have to do. But I said, I am the teacher. I'm not the one. I mean, okay, we can share ideas, but we have a reverse roles in this situation. But then I realized that in her language, using the imperative form was normal in that kind of situation. But we had to talk about this. I said, I am a teacher and I understand your, I don't know Russian, of course, but I understand why you are expressing yourself in this way. But, and she was a lawyer, if you have to interact with another lawyer from Europe, probably they will not like this kind of approach. They will not, eventually, they will not like you. Okay, so make sure you write in the correct way. So, going back, I was saying, in fact, that nowadays we communicate a lot with other cultures, so with other states. Like today, I'm from Italy, and we're working remotely. But sometimes, even in our same nation, we interact with people from different cultures. So the question is, because one of my students asked me this, what can I do to know in advance how other people would communicate, what other people like doing or what they don't like doing, when actually we cannot do this. It's too much. I mean, you get to know this with the experience, but what you can do is to be open. Look at what other people do. Don't take it for granted that you are in the right position, that what you do is right and what other people do is wrong. Just understand that we are used to doing different things. So what is right for me, it might not be right for you, but stay open, listen actively, be empathetic, and understand that what you want to do to embrace other people's approaches, and what you might not want to do because probably for you it's not okay. So up to this point, we talked about things that are difficult for every writer, so also for English writers. But as non-native English writers, we have to face different challenges. So let's take a quick look at the challenges of non-native writers. So as we said, conveying your ideas successfully to another person is always a challenge, no matter what your nationality is. And when you have to convey your ideas in writing and in a language that is not yours, the challenges are even greater. So non-native writers have to translate their ideas in another language. So what are the dangers of this process? First of all, people tend to write their email in their own language and then translate it in the language that they have to deliver this message. And the results is that normally we have emails that are overcomplicated, too wordy, that do not go straight to the point, and sometimes it's not clear what type of action the people need to take, or they don't use the target language in the right way. The point is that we have many different tools that we can use today. One possible tool, one tool that we're all starting to use, and finally also Italy is starting to use, is ChatGPT, so generative AI. This is a very powerful tool, and I believe that will help we all become better writers, only so at the condition that we know what we want. So first of all, that's why we are holding these seminars, because we know that people will rely on ChatGPT for their writings. So we want people to know what the final message will have to be. So because ChatGPT cannot do this, we are the ones who need to understand whether the product given to us by ChatGPT is the right one or not. So that's why we spend so much time talking about modern letter writing, because we need to understand how an email, a good email, is structured, how to convey messages, and we also need to be very sensible about cross-cultural problems and issues. So a possible approach would be to identify your thoughts in your own language, translate it into English, then check it, for example, with DeepL. DeepL is a very good tool for translations. There's a free version and there's also a paid version. The free version is okay. You only need, the problem is that you don't have too many words that you can translate. And now DeepL, also the free version, has another very powerful tool that is DeepL Write, where you can change your message and decide. So it not only it corrects your grammar, but it also changes your message to the target recipient of your message. So let's say that I write an email in Italian, and I want that this email to be to convey this the same email, the same message in English. So what I can do is that I can translate my email, but then probably, as I said, my result, my translation might be too wordy, not fluent, let's say. So I can paste that same email in DeepL Write, and then design the type of reader that will read my email. So if it's a business or academic or a person that is knowledgeable about the matter or not, and then DeepL will change my message accordingly. Or another possibility is that we use ChatGPT from scratch, but we have to be very specific about what the email should include. And remember that ChatGPT doesn't really protect our data, and so don't put confident information in ChatGPT. But this said, let's take a look at what our messages, what other our emails have to, how they have to be. Remember to keep it simple. So short, simple sentences are much easier to understand by someone who is reading or hearing a message in a language rather than their mother tongue. And I could say that even for native speakers, it's always better to receive a message that is simple. So keep your emails short, but make sure that your message is conveyed in an appropriate manner. So remember your ABCs when writing an email: accurate, brief, and clear. So be accurate, check facts carefully. If you have a meeting, make sure that you're writing that the right day, time, etc. Include all relevant details so that you don't have to write too many emails to convey the same message. Write one email that contains all the information, and that it's done. Proofread thoroughly. So as I said before, if you can, ask someone else to check your email. If you don't have another person, use DeepL Write, for example. Use generative AI. Be brief. Keep sentences short. Use simple expressions. If possible, do not use technical language. As lawyers, of course, at a certain point, you will have to use technical language, and it's okay. And use the active voice. And be clear, of course. Now, let's take a look at the differences between the 21st century business language and the language that we used in the past. So in the past, for example, business was conducted in a much more impassive and formal way than today, because people normally met in other environments. They were used to holding meetings in person, so they knew each other. Nowadays, it's not like that. So we have to build relationships online. And in the past, writers used to use big words because they thought that using big words would impress, sorry, there's a problem with my screen. Wait.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Yeah, well, it was truly really thorough and like full of information, detailed presentation, which was really helpful for personally me and my students. I'm sure for my students as well, because
Thank you.
the writing itself is probably one of the most difficult skills, not only for lawyers but for any professional in the sphere. And the writing and speaking, like those are like productive skills rather than reading and listening, which are the receptive skills. Always is they're really challenging. I do want to ask you one little like professional question. You've mentioned about the role of the chat GPT, the artificial generative text generative platforms. Now, what do you think now? We all know that these like platforms are really gaining popularity these days and becoming very famous, and they're also taking certain jobs and skills from people too. Like in our case, the writing skill, the not only the students but also the teachers at the university as well are just heavily relying on those platforms on writing professional emails and writing certain types of letters as well. Now, what would you recommend to them to do? Can they like 100% rely on the produced result of those platforms, and do they have to also double check or proofread what that uh, platform have generated?
Yeah, okay. So first of all, it's we're all discovering this. So it's only based on my personal knowledge. But I can say as a translator, we started using generative AI with DeepL years ago and with other machine translation tools. At the beginning, we were all freaked out by this. We said this will ruin our field. We will no longer be able to have our jobs because AI will replace our jobs. And I can say that this is totally untrue, because AI is clever, but it doesn't have your knowledge. It has different knowledge, which means that even the sound of what it produces can be identified as not natural sometimes, especially if you are in a technical sphere. Like, for example, I am in the legal sphere. Technical words need to be adapted to the country in which the message will have to be read, and you have to make sure that the translation is correct. What AI can give us is more time to do this type of research. So it gives us it does the major part of the work, but at the same time, we don't have to say like, okay, AI is doing that and I don't need to do anything. No, AI is doing 80% of the job that I used to do in the past, which leaves me with 80% of the time to do more research. So I have to use that time for for being able to track what AI is not able to do and do it. Then many people over rely on ChatGPT, but ChatGPT lies many times. When ChatGPT doesn't find the right information, it puts information that it finds somewhere, even though it's not sure about the content it is delivering. So you should always ask ChatGPT whether you have a bit of a doubt. ChatGPT, are you sure about this information? Because I'm not sure. And ChatGPT is not a liar, so it would tell you, actually, you're right. I'm not. I cheated on this, and it's normal conversations that we have with ChatGPT nowadays. This said, if you have to write and produce something in English, ChatGPT is able to produce a good result. I did try to do the same thing with the Italian language, and no way the output is the same, because there are not as many people using the platform in Italian as there are in English. So if you have to write something in English, you can rely on ChatGPT, especially for the form, the not the content. For the content, you always have to double check. And what else? No, ChatGPT is not going to ruin our lives. It will make it different, of course.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the answer. Now, if the audience, the students, the professors, if you have any questions, you're all welcome, please. You can text it to the chat box, or you can just fire up and ask the question from Claudia herself. Do you have any questions, the audience? Okay. I guess.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, please.
Good afternoon.
I have a question, like, can you send your presentation for us? We are the students of Oybek Shakirovich, and the presentation you gave us in the Zoom, like now, because we had before that competition law, and he sent it us for competition law presentation. So, and we need your presentation, like. So thank you.
Thank you. I think it was recorded.
Yes, it is recorded,
Okay,
and I will send them the video, but not the presentation itself. So they will be able to get like every information from the recording, though. Okay, any more questions from the audience? If the audience doesn't have any questions, I will have to thank you once more, Claudia.
Thank you for having invited me.
For your time and for your effort as well. I know it takes a lot of time just to come up with some ideas, but it takes some extra effort and time to deliver those ideas to the as you've mentioned, the non-English the audience in a very clear and concise way, so that everybody understands it. Thank you very much once more, Ms. Claudia, for being here today with us, and we also are really grateful for all the information you've shared, your insight, your professional, personal insight as well, and that is something which we consider really essential for the law students and for all the professors as well. We look forward to similar meetings in the future as well, and if there will be anything from our part as well, but also are open to any help and all the other features. Thank you once more, and see you.
Thank you again. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you all. Have a great day.
You too.